A bustling city park hummed with life under the golden rays of a sunny afternoon. Joggers darted along pathways. Children laughed as they chased each other around playground equipment, and clusters of friends picnicked on soft blankets. Among the activity, a black teenager navigated the scene, balancing a paper bag full of groceries in one hand and a reusable tote slung over his shoulder. His pace was steady, his face calm but purposeful. It was a typical afternoon for him, running errands for his family and occasionally lending a hand to neighbors in need. As he approached the edge of the park, a sleek luxury car stood out among the line of parked vehicles. Its glossy black finish gleamed in the sunlight, but the figure standing next to it was anything but serene. A wealthy woman, her designer dress a statement of elegance and privilege, paced anxiously beside the car. Her manicured fingers fumbled with a phone as she alternated between frustrated calls and glances at her surroundings. Her face was etched with stress, her polished appearance contrasting sharply with her visible distress. A flat tire had derailed her plans, and the day's heat seemed to amplify her frustration. Pedestrians passed her by, some casting curious glances, but none stopping to offer assistance. Her aura of sophistication seemed to intimidate those who might have otherwise stepped forward. The teen, making his way past the car, paused for a moment. His eyes quickly took in the scene, the deflated tire, the unopened toolkit lying on the ground, and the woman's evident unease. He shifted the grocery bag to his other hand and approached her with a quiet confidence. "Ma'am, do you need some help?" he asked, his voice steady and polite. The woman looked up, startled by his sudden approach. For a brief moment, her gaze flickered with hesitation, her instincts shaped by years of ingrained prejudice. But the sincerity in the teen's expression gave her pause. "It's my tire," she said, gesturing toward the car. "I'm trying to call someone, but I can't get through." The teen nodded, setting his groceries down carefully. "I can take a look," he offered, kneeling beside the car to inspect the situation. His hands moved with practiced ease, his demeanor calm and reassuring. The woman watched as he retrieved the necessary tools and began loosening the lug nuts. Around them, a subtle shift occurred. Passers-by who had previously ignored the scene began to notice the teen's act of kindness. A few even stopped to observe, their faces registering a mix of surprise and admiration. The stark contrast between the teen's modest attire and the woman's opulent ensemble highlighted the selflessness of his actions. As the teen worked, the woman seemed to relax slightly, her initial wariness giving way to gratitude. "Thank you," she said, her tone softening. "I wasn't sure what to do. I've never had to deal with this before." The teen glanced up with a faint smile. "It's no problem. My dad taught me how to change a tire when I was a kid. Said it's something everyone should know." The interaction, though brief, carried an undercurrent of significance. The teen's gesture wasn't just about fixing a flat tire. It was a reflection of his character, shaped by a life of resilience and a commitment to helping others. The woman, accustomed to a world of privilege and barriers, found herself rethinking her assumptions in the face of his quiet determination. When the task was complete, the teen stood, brushing the dust off his hands. "You're all set," he said, handing her the tools. "Just make sure to get the tire checked soon." The woman stared at him for a moment as if seeing him clearly for the first time. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "You've been incredibly kind." The teen shrugged, picking up his groceries. "No thanks needed, ma'am. Have a good day." As he walked away, the woman stood by her car, watching him disappear into the crowd. Her mind lingered on the encounter, the simplicity of his kindness contrasting sharply with the assumptions she hadn't even realized she'd held. The park returned to its usual rhythm, the incident fading into the background for most. But for the teen and the woman, the moment left an indelible mark. For him, it was another act of decency in a life defined by integrity. For her, it was a spark of self-awareness that would grow into something far greater than she could have anticipated. The teenager, known simply as Marcus in his neighborhood, was the kind of person who stood out, not for flashiness or loud ambition, but for his unwavering determination and quiet generosity. Growing up in a modest home, Marcus had learned early on the value of resourcefulness and hard work. His family didn't have much, but they made up for it with love, resilience, and an unshakable belief in the power of community. At 16, Marcus juggled school, part-time jobs, and responsibilities at home. His days were a flurry of activity, from helping his younger siblings with homework to running errands for elderly neighbors who saw him as a beacon of hope in their tight-knit community. Despite the challenges, Marcus carried himself with a sense of purpose. His dreams were big, even if his current circumstances made them feel like distant stars. "I want to go to college," he often told his friends. "Not just for me, but for my family. I want to build something that lasts." Marcus wasn't just dreaming of leaving his neighborhood. He dreamed of lifting it. He imagined opening a small business that could provide jobs for people around him, creating opportunities where there were few. Every errand he ran, every extra hour he worked, felt like a step closer to making those dreams a reality. He had no time for self-pity, only action. His kindness wasn't a strategy. It was who he was. Helping others wasn't just something he did. It was how he lived. On the other side of the city, a very different life was being lived by Eleanor Chambers, the wife of one of the wealthiest men in the area. Eleanor's world was one of glitz and exclusivity, a life carefully curated with designer labels, private events, and a never-ending sea of polite but shallow social interactions. Yet beneath the polished exterior, Eleanor often felt a gnawing sense of emptiness. Her marriage to a billionaire had brought financial security, but it had also built invisible walls around her. Eleanor rarely ventured outside her social bubble, where problems were solved with a phone call, and kindness often came with strings attached. She was used to people catering to her needs, not out of genuine care, but because of her husband's influence. Genuine interactions were scarce, and her world felt increasingly disconnected from the vibrant, authentic lives of ordinary people. Despite her wealth, Eleanor often longed for something real. She had begun to notice how much of her life revolved around maintaining appearances rather than building meaningful connections. That realization had left her unsettled, but unsure of how to bridge the gap between her privileged world and the reality outside it. On the sunny afternoon, when their paths crossed, Marcus and Eleanor couldn't have seemed more different. He was a teenager on a mission, determined to carve out a better future through sheer grit and determination. She was a woman surrounded by luxury, yet searching for something that couldn't be bought. Their encounter, though brief, would challenge their perspectives and set in motion a chain of events neither could have anticipated. For Marcus, it would be another opportunity to help someone in need, a natural extension of his character. For Eleanor, it would be a rare and profound moment of connection, forcing her to confront the assumptions she carried and the life she lived. Together, they were about to create a story that would transcend their differences, proving that a single act of kindness could ripple outwards in ways neither of them could imagine. The sun was high in the sky as Marcus made his way down the bustling street, carrying groceries for a neighbor who'd been under the weather. The sound of laughter from kids playing and the occasional car horn filled the air. It was an ordinary day, one that Marcus had planned to spend completing his errands before heading home to help his siblings with their schoolwork. But fate had other plans. Not far ahead, Marcus noticed a sleek, high-end car parked awkwardly at the side of the road. Beside it stood a woman who looked out of place in the vibrant yet modest neighborhood. Dressed in pristine designer clothing, Eleanor Chambers was visibly stressed, pacing back and forth as she looked helplessly at her car. A flat tire had stranded her, and her frustration was evident in every gesture. Marcus hesitated for a moment. The woman's polished appearance and the obvious expense of her vehicle made him wonder if she'd welcome his help or dismiss him outright. But his instinct to assist kicked in. Setting the groceries down carefully, he approached her with a calm smile. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said politely. "Looks like you've got a flat. Need a hand?" Eleanor stopped pacing, her guarded expression softening slightly as she took in the sight of Marcus. A teenager, dressed simply but with an air of quiet confidence, stood before her. She nodded, a bit unsure. "That would be very kind of you," she replied, her tone cautious but grateful. Marcus got to work immediately. He located the spare tire in the trunk, crouched down, and began loosening the bolts with the tools he found. Eleanor watched, both impressed and a little taken aback. She wasn't used to strangers offering unsolicited help without expecting something in return. "You seem to know what you're doing," she said, trying to break the silence. Marcus chuckled softly. "I've helped fix a few tires before. My neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, says I've got a knack for these kinds of things. Guess it comes in handy." As Marcus worked, Eleanor found herself observing him closely. His movements were efficient, his demeanor composed. She noticed the faint wear on his shoes and the way he brushed dirt from his hands onto his jeans without a second thought. It struck her how someone with so little could carry themselves with such quiet dignity. When the job was done, Marcus stood up and wiped his hands on a rag he had pulled from the trunk. "There you go, ma'am. Should be good to drive now," he said, stepping back. Eleanor looked at him, her expression a mix of gratitude and curiosity. "Thank you," she said earnestly. "That was incredibly kind of you. I'm not sure what I would have done without your help." Marcus smiled modestly. "It's no trouble. I'm glad I could help." As they stood by the car, Eleanor felt compelled to learn more about this young man. She asked a few casual questions, initially out of politeness, but soon found herself deeply engaged in his story. Marcus spoke about his family, his dreams of going to college, and his goal of creating opportunities for others in his community. There was no self-pity in his words, only determination and hope. "You're quite remarkable, Marcus," she said softly, feeling a genuine connection. "The world could use more people like you." Marcus shrugged with a small smile. "Just trying to do my part, ma'am." Eleanor was moved in a way she hadn't expected. Here was someone who, despite facing challenges she could scarcely imagine, exuded a generosity of spirit that seemed all too rare. She wanted to do something to help, but she held back, knowing it wasn't the right moment. Instead, she extended her hand. "Thank you again, Marcus. I won't forget this," she said sincerely. He shook her hand, nodded, and picked up his groceries. "Take care, ma'am," he said as he walked away. As Eleanor drove off, her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. She hadn't revealed who she was or the resources at her disposal, but one thing was clear. This encounter wasn't going to end here. Marcus had done more than fix her tire. He'd reignited something within her, a desire to use her wealth and privilege for something meaningful. She didn't yet know how, but she knew she would repay his kindness in a way that would change his life forever. The morning sun was barely peeking through the curtains when Marcus heard a commotion outside. Curious, he looked out the window and was stunned to see a sleek, black luxury car parked in front of his house. The neighborhood, typically quiet at this hour, buzzed with curiosity, as neighbors peeked through their windows or gathered in small groups to speculate about the unexpected visitor. Marcus stepped outside cautiously, his heart racing with a mix of confusion and intrigue. Standing beside the car was Eleanor Chambers, the woman he had helped just the day before. But this time, she wasn't alone. Beside her stood a tall, impeccably dressed man with a warm smile, her husband, a figure Marcus recognized from the news as one of the most prominent billionaires in the city. The sight of them together, standing in front of his modest home, felt surreal. Eleanor's face lit up as she saw Marcus approach. "Good morning, Marcus," she greeted warmly. "I hope we're not intruding." Marcus shook his head, still too stunned to speak. Finally, he found his voice. "What brings you here, ma'am?" Eleanor exchanged a glance with her husband, who stepped forward. "I'm William Chambers," he said, extending a hand. "My wife told me about your incredible kindness yesterday. I wanted to meet the young man who went out of his way to help her." Marcus shook his hand, still unsure of what to make of the situation. "I just did what anyone would do," he said modestly. Eleanor smiled. "That's where you're wrong, Marcus. What you did wasn't just helpful. It was selfless. In a world where so many walk by without a second thought, you stepped up." Her words made Marcus blush slightly, but he remained humble. "I'm just glad I could help." Eleanor's tone shifted to one of excitement. "Marcus, I didn't tell you this yesterday, but I'm not just someone passing through. My husband and I own a number of businesses, and we're in a position to make a difference when we see potential." William nodded. "We've been fortunate in life, Marcus, but we've always believed in giving back to those who truly deserve it. And after hearing your story, we want to help you." Marcus blinked, his mind struggling to process their words. "Help me? How?" Eleanor's expression softened. "We want to invest in your future. Whatever you need, college tuition, resources for your family, or funding to kickstart your dreams, we want to make it happen." Marcus stared at them, his disbelief evident. "You'd do that? For me?" "Absolutely," William said firmly. "You've already proven your character, Marcus. It's rare to find someone with your determination and kindness, and we want to ensure you have every opportunity to succeed." Eleanor added, "This isn't just a gift, Marcus. It's an investment in someone we believe in. You have the potential to achieve great things, and we want to be part of that journey." Marcus felt a lump form in his throat. For a moment he struggled to find the right words. I don't know what to say," he admitted. "Thank you doesn't seem like enough." William placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You don't need to say anything now, Marcus. Take some time to think about it. We're here to support you, not just today, but for the long haul." Eleanor smiled warmly. "And this is just the beginning, Marcus. We'll work together to make sure you have everything you need to succeed." As the Chambers couple left, Marcus stood rooted to the spot, overwhelmed by their generosity. The neighbors, still watching from a distance, whispered among themselves, their admiration for Marcus growing. Inside, Marcus's mind swirled with thoughts of what the future might hold. The kindness he had shown just a day ago had come back to him in a way he could never have imagined. and for the first time in his life, his dreams felt closer than ever before. Marcus's life changed almost overnight. The morning after Eleanor and William Chambers' visit, he found himself holding a stack of documents and brochures detailing opportunities that felt like something out of a dream. Among them were acceptance papers for a prestigious preparatory school, funded entirely by the Chambers family, along with resources for his family, groceries, home repairs, and even a new computer for his studies. The transformation wasn't just material, it was deeply personal. Eleanor and William didn't simply provide funds, they became mentors and confidants. Eleanor frequently visited Marcus, guiding him through the transition to his new school, and ensuring he felt supported every step of the way. She shared her own struggles with adapting to life in high society, and how she'd learned to use her position to help others. Marcus soaked up her wisdom, inspired by her blend of strength and kindness. William took on a different role, introducing Marcus to the world of business and entrepreneurship. He invited Marcus to shadow him during meetings and explained the inner workings of running successful ventures. William encouraged Marcus to dream big, offering not just financial backing, but also practical advice on how to navigate the complexities of achieving those dreams. At his new school, Marcus faced initial hesitation from some of his peers, but his humility and work ethic quickly earned their respect. Teachers marveled at his dedication, and classmates admired his willingness to help others succeed. Slowly but surely, Marcus became a role model, embodying resilience and the transformative power of generosity. Back in his neighborhood, Marcus's story spread like wildfire. The sight of a luxury car pulling up in the area wasn't just a spectacle anymore. It became a symbol of hope. People marveled at how one small act of kindness had snowballed into an extraordinary opportunity. Marcus's friends and neighbors felt inspired to dream bigger, realizing that their circumstances didn't have to define their futures. Eleanor and William also found themselves transformed by the experience. Their bond with Marcus deepened their connection to the community and reignited their passion for philanthropy. They expanded their efforts, creating programs to support underprivileged youth and offering scholarships to students with potential. Marcus's story became the cornerstone of their mission, a shining example of what could happen when kindness met opportunity. When Marcus delivered a speech at a community event sponsored by the Chambers, his words resonated deeply. This isn't just my story, it's ours. It's proof that helping one person can ripple out and touch countless lives. Kindness isn't just an act, it's a legacy. The applause that followed was thunderous, a reflection of the profound impact Marcus and the Chambers had on the community. For Marcus, this new chapter was more than just a fresh start. It was a chance to inspire others, proving that small acts of compassion could lead to extraordinary transformations. And for Eleanor and William, it was a reminder that sometimes the most profound wealth came not from material possessions, but from the bonds formed through acts of humanity. Marcus stood at the heart of the community event, the bright afternoon sun casting warm rays over the vibrant gathering. Families laughed, children played, and local vendors displayed their goods. It was a celebration not only of progress, but of unity, a tangible reflection of how far the community had come since that fateful day, when a simple act of kindness had reshaped his life. Eleanor Chambers stood beside Marcus, her presence a steady reminder of the bond that had transformed them both. The billionaire's wife no longer carried the detached air of privilege, but exuded a genuine connection to the people around her. Together, They had turned an isolated moment of generosity into a movement, one that had uplifted countless lives. For Marcus, the journey had been extraordinary. From that day in the park, where he had helped a woman in distress without a second thought, to standing here as a role model and advocate for change, life had taken an unexpected turn. His education at a prestigious school, the mentorship from Eleanor and her husband, and the unwavering support of his family had paved the way for dreams he had once thought unattainable. Yet, Marcus's success wasn't merely personal. With the resources and guidance he had received, he began investing in his community. He started after-school programs for underprivileged kids, providing mentorship and academic support. He spearheaded initiatives to renovate community spaces and create job opportunities for local residents. The lessons he had learned from Eleanor and William Chambers about leadership and responsibility now fueled his drive to give back. Eleanor, too, had been profoundly changed. Her connection to Marcus and his community had shifted her perspective on wealth and its purpose. No longer content with distant philanthropy, she became deeply involved in grassroots efforts, dedicating her time and resources to fostering equity and opportunity. The event reached its highlight as Marcus stepped onto the stage, microphone in hand, and the crowd hushed in anticipation. His voice carried warmth and conviction as he spoke. This day is proof that kindness has the power to change lives. When we choose to see each other not through assumptions, but through understanding, we create a world where everyone has the chance to thrive. The audience erupted into applause, their cheers echoing the shared belief in the potential of humanity. As Marcus stepped down, Eleanor greeted him with a proud smile, her faith in his vision unwavering. The event concluded with Marcus and Eleanor walking side by side through the lively crowd, greeting familiar faces and sharing laughs with neighbors. Their partnership was more than a success story. It was a testament to the transformative power of compassion and collaboration. As the sun began to set, casting golden hues across the sky, Marcus turned to Eleanor and said, "Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness open the biggest doors to change." She nodded, her heart full, knowing they were only at the beginning of a journey that would leave an indelible mark on countless lives.